Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to discuss with you guys the latest changes to the meta. I know the latest balance patch was some months ago, but meta always takes a bit to settle down and people will test stuff and will try on their guilds, guild versus guilds or open tag Zergs. They will test out the classes and see what works best. So probably you will see some classes which are played less lately and some classes which are played more. So in this video I'm gonna try to make a similar tier list of what you should be playing to be with the meta basically. It doesn't mean that these compositions will work better, but it seems the trend and it seems to work, of course. But if you are skilled enough, in my opinion, there are also other alternatives. So let's start from the main problem. We will start from this video from my channel from like 4 months ago, in which I discussed the tier list of the meta at the time, and in this video of today I will not cover all the classes as I did, but I will just cover the changes and will put the classes into the newest tier, in my opinion, of course. So we will begin from the Chronomancer, which is the problem I was telling you earlier. Okay, the Chronomancer himself is not a problem, but maybe it needs to be tuned down in some aspects and in some skills. Like 1 year ago, the Chronomancer, the heal Chronomancer was buffed hugely and it was like super overpowered, and then it was nerfed and almost no one played it. But then the trend again started to play Chronomancer, and sometimes you can find 2 Chronomancer in a single party. And let's discover why. So basically the Chronomancer has this mantra which gives AoE stability, and then you have 2 charges of stability. Everything is AoE, so basically you can take the place of a firebrand because of this stability. You have a lot of stability with this skill, which has also a low cooldown. Then if you want, you also have this well, which is a stability on the first pulse, like 5 seconds of stability. Oh, by the way, everything you see is with zero boon duration because this character is naked. Then we have also stability on the F4, and if you want, you could also take out some utility to go for this one, which is recharge all the F1, F2, F3, F4 completely, so you can go stability. Then you press this and you can go stability again because of this trait here. This trait will grant stability AoE when you press your F4, which is huge. And also in all of that we also have the continuum split, which you can use to double every skill you want basically. And so it's kinda overpowered. You can double the stability stacks, so for some guilds, for most guilds and most people, there is kinda no reason to run the firebrand. I know the firebrand can heal maybe a bit more than the Chronomancer, and I'm not even sure about this. And you have some Hages, which could be good, but I mean, in War vs World there is so much skill spam, the Aegis is almost pointless, and also you cannot really spam Aegis on firebrand. You can give some, but it will not change your life, in my opinion. The main reason the firebrand maybe could be still played over the Chronomancer is the fact that the firebrand on the elite skill you have an AoE stun break, which is the mantra, and that is huge to save your allies and is a very big aspect. But still, for the stability aspect, the firebrand has maybe a bit more stability because of the hallowed ground, which is the pulsing field which pulses the stability. But except that, the Chronomancer is superior. You have the F4, you have the mantra which has the initial cast and 2 more stacks. If you want, you can reset your shatters with this skill, which is not really played a lot, but still it's an option. Basically the Chronomancer has so many utility skills and so many traits which are huge and really strong. You have so many utility skills to choose from that is not even comparable to any other class. The most popular Chronomancer build is this one, which is a full heal. We have this trait, which is mandatory on every Chronomancer, in my opinion. And you have this final trait, which is the AoE stability, AoE resistance, might, vigor, fury. So it's kinda strong, like super strong. And then you have on the full heal build, you have this trait, which is basically AoE heal whenever you use a charge of a mantra, so some people will also use this mantra of recovery, as a healing skill instead of the well. I like to go well with this trait because it gives a really huge heal, and also the well helps removing the condition from allies. And then we also have some resistance and super speed on this trait, and then here we have AoE heals and also cleanse conditions whenever we shatter. So we press F1, we heal, give protection also because of this trait, heal, protection, remove condition. So we have really almost unlimited heals and the AoE buffs, and in all of that, of course, you can double everything with the continuum split. And then you have also your utility skills and your weapon skills. We will run the sword on main hand, and we can run like sword focus or sword shield. Some people run the rifle for augmenting the support, and in my opinion rifle is needed because you have barriers, heals, and also a lot of blindness, might, fury, cripple, regeneration. You have a lot of boons, and so this is why the Chronomancer is played, because of the boon spam. But then we also should cover the Chronomancer trait line. On the Chronomancer trait line, basically we have alacrity or quickness whenever we shatter, we can choose, and this is a reason why some people run double Chronomancer. One goes for quickness and healing, the other goes for alacrity and stripping, or vice versa. We can see also the next Chronomancer build, which is full strip. So this build revolves only on the strips, and the strips are done with your shatter. Whenever you press your F1, F2, F3, F4 around you, you will remove boons from enemies, sorry. And this is super strong. You are fighting almost all the time in melee with the current meta, so you just press your boons, you just press your shatters, sorry, and you will remove boons from enemies. And this is kinda strong. No other class can have immediate boon strip around us just by pressing random stuff. And also you could also go for some hybrid Chronomancer build. This trait line is needed, of course, and instead of illusions you could go for not inspiration, but the chaos. So we can also go for some stability. We have, for example, here stability, we have boon strip. We can go for the null field, which also removes boons from enemies and removes conditions from allies. It's this field. And then together with this we could go, for example, for the mantra of stability, mantra of concentration. So we will have a lot of boon strip on the F1 to F4, and then on the utilities we have some support to help, for example, the main Chronomancer or the Firebrand if you want. And for the gears you can go, for example, for Minstrel. If you want to be full heal, you can go Minstrel, and this is this one. But if you don't run the inspiration trait line, it's useless because you don't do any heals with this current build here. So for example, some people go soldier, so they will tank more and they stay alive and they boon strip and apply stability on the allies. But if you want, you could also go for some marauder mixed to berserker, Valkyrie, or whatever it is. So you can have some power, precision and ferocity while being quite tanky, because you have, for example, the blocks on the shield, you have invulnerabilities, you can go back in time, you have ages, you have blocks, invulnerabilities again, you have dodges, you have a lot of stuff to stay alive. And with the berserker and marauder combination, you can do quite some damage in melee while shattering. So you press your shatters random inside the enemies, you do AoE quite good damage while also removing boons from enemies, and in all that you can also apply stability on the allies. So like you can do so many things at once with the Chronomancer, and it's kinda insane. I know most parties will run the Renegade for the alacrity and for the stability on the roads, on the Dwarf Legend. So this trait maybe is not used much on the Chronomancer, and maybe is the reason because we don't run 2 Chronomancer, because we have alacrity on the Renegades, and we run Seize the Moment, which is basically almost perma quickness while fighting if you have enough boon duration on the Minstrel build, I mean. And also the utility skills are like every utility skill is OP, like Well of Precognition is pulsing ages and also gives some stability at the start of the cast. And then we also have, for example, the null field, which I just showed you, removes conditions from allies and remove boons from enemies. Then we have Veil, which is the only stealth left basically in War vs World. No other class can do this, so the Chronomancer will always be meta as long as we have the Veil, because it really helps initiate fights on your enemies. Then you also have Illusion of Life, which is like one of the best skills in the game. You can revive up to 3 targets, AoE, ranged. You will revive them for 15 seconds, and then if they are not killing any enemies, they will go down again. But you can prevent this, for example, with some invulnerabilities or some barriers. So since we play a lot of Scourges in the current meta, we have a lot of barrier, and if the barrier goes over your maximum health, you can of course stay alive and you will not go down at the end of this. And also in War vs World, we need to consider that we get many kills, so it's really likely that we will kill at least one enemy during these 15 seconds and we will get fully revived. And also you can of course double this with your continuum split, or if you want, you could go for Mimic. So the next utility skills you will use after Mimic will have a 1 second cooldown instead of 75. So you could really revive 6 players, or maybe even 9, because if you use the continuum split. The elite skill, you can use a Time Warp, which is a big AoE field, which will grant super speed to allies, quickness to allies for like 5 seconds, and also slow on the enemies, and is unblockable, and it's huge, as you can see. Otherwise, you could go for the Gravity Well, which is the main elite skill used in the Boon Strip Chrono, but even on the support Chrono, because it's a big AoE CC, like 3 seconds, like 3 CCs in the same AoE, so you will remove up to 3 stacks of stability, and if the enemy has no stability, basically they are dead, because they are sitting around in this well and they can do nothing unless they get stun break from allies. So as you can see, there are so many stuff which are kinda strong and unique on the Chronomancer. You can CC, you can revive, you can heal, you can stealth, you can apply stability, you can do some damage, you can boon strip a lot. Oftentimes the Chronomancer are on arc DPS on the top strips, like top strips usually are the Reapers or the Scourges or even the Spellbreaker, but immediately behind you have the Chronomancers together with the Renegades, and the Renegades is another very strong class. So with all this said, we go from the tier B, situational strong classes. When I did this video, the Chronomancer was basically unused, and now in my opinion is a bit too strong, is noticeably stronger class, because you can really run double Chronomancer, a Scourge, a Renegade and a DPS, and your party is unkillable. You have Boon Strip, you have quickness, you have alacrity, you have stability, you have good heals, good Condi cleanses. I will cover later the Condi cleanses aspect, and you have of course good CCs, and with good CCs also comes good damage, because damage is done to people who is disabled, like they have cripple, chill, immobilize, or they are stunned, because if you can just walk around freely with resistance and stability, you will never die, let's face it. So even if the Chronomancer is now maybe S tier, I want to clarify that the Firebrand, in my opinion, stays on the A tier. Stronger classes who always perform well. You will always be welcome in any squad. You can provide a lot of stability, a lot of ages, a lot of CCs, resistance, some heals, so you are really solid, and the Firebrand is not out of meta, but maybe is trending a little less in the latest patches, in the latest meta, so maybe the Chronomancer will find a bit more place in a squad than a Firebrand, but still you are really solid. If you are a Firebrand main, you should not worry. The same goes for the Scourge. The Scourge is unchanged, of course. It stays on the A tier, and then on the A tier I will also put the Renegade, because the Renegade is a strong condition, is a strong Boon Stripper, unblockable from range, and also provides stability, so it will help the Firebrand or the Chronomancer with the stability. And then most importantly, you have alacrity on your F skills, so you can provide alacrity while your Chronomancer will provide quickness, so you can maybe run one Chronomancer instead of 2. So these classes are basically needed in every party, the other are a bit filler. Now it's time for a hot topic, the secondary supports, which I mean the Druid, the Tempest and the Scrapper. They are not tier C, by the way, I'm just putting them here to show you better. So these classes are not really used a lot in the latest meta changes, like many guilds barely run some of these, like the Tempest maybe you can see 1 or 2 per squad, the Scrapper maybe a bit more, and the Druid as of the Scrapper maybe, or as of the Tempest. Why did this happen? Basically, on the Scourge, which by the way can provide a lot of barrier and a lot of boon strip on the enemies, Scourge can provide some condition cleanses. You can run the Well of Power, I think is the name, for the condition cleanses. Then you have a lot of barrier, and each time you grant barrier to allies you can remove conditions from them. And also transfusion was removed, so instead of that trait you run the one that removes conditions from allies. So you have a bit of condi cleanses on the Scourge. Then we have almost permanent resistance on the Renegade, which is another characteristic of the Renegade. You can give alacrity and resistance and stability, and also boon strip the enemies while having solid CCs also. So we have resistance to make every conditions which is non-damaging, so chill, cripple and immobilize, weakness, blindness, ineffective. So you don't need a lot of condition cleanses as before. And then we have of course the Chronomancer or the Firebrand, or maybe both. Some party you can run both a Firebrand and a Chronomancer, and you have condition cleanses on this class. The F2 from the Firebrand has condition cleanses, you have Purging Flames, you have your Shouts, you can apply resistance also on the Firebrand. On the Chronomancer you have Null Field, you have the Shatters to remove conditions. So you have really every class can remove some conditions, noticeably less than the secondary supports, but together they can remove a lot of conditions. And since the condition meta seems kinda over, because the Celestial was nerfed, Celestial doesn't have condition duration anymore, so many people decided to not run the secondary supports, which are still really strong classes who always perform well, but still you need to take a slot in your party to fill in with these secondary supports, which by the way are noticeably stronger in the condition cleanses and in the heals compared to the Firebrand, Chrono, Scourge and Renegade, but still Scrapper, Druid and Tempest are very strong as secondary supports, but it's up to the meta of the guild or of the squad. Like you can skip a DPS to get more support, to get more heals, but if you go double DPS, for example, you can go in a party, in a single party, you can go a Chronomancer, a Scourge, a Renegade and 2 DPS, for example. You can fill in with a Holosmith and a Dragon Hunter, for example, which is really trending lately. So this is almost a perfect party, I would say, if not a perfect party. Some people would skip maybe 1 DPS to get or a secondary support or another Chronomancer or maybe a Firebrand. So it's up to the people you are fighting and also on the skill of the squad, but this is in the tier B, you see, this is a perfect party, and of course they are not tier B, this is the correct tiers. The Holosmith, I know I used to put it on the noticeably stronger class. I mean, it still is noticeably stronger than the other secondary supports, but still I wouldn't say that it needs to be nerfed. Maybe the Chronomancer needs some nerf, for example, in the Illusion of Life, also Veil. Like, the Chronomancer is not super overpowered, but it has so many things at the same time, and also some things are unique, like Alacrity and Quickness are basically exclusive, like no other class can unleash so much quickness as the Chronomancer, in War vs World I mean, because the Firebrand has some quickness, but the duration is really low. You need to take special utilities, special traits, and on the Chronomancer you just need to shatter around, just press F1, F2, F3, F4 randomly. And also you have, for example, Illusion of Life, which is super strong. You have Veil, which is basically the only stealth left in War vs World. You have a lot of CCs, you have a lot of boon strips, you have a lot of stability, Aegis. So it has a bit of everything, and a bit, maybe even a bit more than a bit. So maybe the secondary supports lowered in tier. I would say the Scrapper is A tier because is still a very strong class, but is not so much stronger than Tempest and Druid that maybe it needs a nerf. So I would say this is the final verdict. And also, as other DPS classes, I would of course include the Berserker, because the Berserker is kinda strong. It has a huge burst while you are in Berserk mode. You have a bit of a downtime during the Berserk mode cooldown, but still during the Berserk mode you have basically 2 buttons to do damage, which are your F1s, and you can really just unleash them and deal like 10k arc divider on enemies and huge damage on them. The other classes, I would say they are unchanged, so basically the biggest changes are the Chronomancer going from B to S, even if there was no changes, but maybe people discovered how to play it and how to use it properly, because when it was in the tier B, I guarantee you guys that no one was playing it, so now everyone plays it, so in my opinion maybe it's a bit overtuned. And then we had the Scrapper going to tier A, even if there was no changes, but still the secondary supports lost some popularity. They are still strong, they are still played, but a bit less than before. And then we had the Holosmith, which went down a bit because maybe it doesn't need any more nerfs. It was nerfed a bit during the time. Now we also have Dragon Hunters and Berserkers, which are kinda strong. You need to be full melee on the Berserker to deal damage, while the Holo has a bit more of tolerance. I know it needs to be more melee, but still you can also go, for example, with the Flamethrower. You also have your elite skill. So I think the DPS aspect is kinda fine. Maybe we need to tune down the Chronomancer without killing it. I don't know if it's possible. Let's see what ArenaNet will show us. Okay guys, this was all for today's video. Let me know in the comments your thoughts. I know meta is a bit subjective. I will always be a fan of the off-meta classes, like for example the Soul Beast or the Reaper, which is not super meta but still is really strong. These classes can work if you are a very good player, but still some classes are just better than others and they are more popular than others for a reason. So don't get mad if your class is not considered meta. I think the ArenaNet will surprise us with the next balance patch, which should happen like in 2 weeks from today, but we have zero news at the moment. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy my content, so you will not lose any future videos. See you next and have a great night. Bye bye.